Awesome. Good. So, Sister Macey, we are so happy to have you here. Thank you for the time. I know your life and your schedule is very busy, and I think you're actually skipping dinner right now, which
Yes.
a sacrifice. What a real Franciscan offering up those sufferings, right? But yes, we're excited to have you here. So, for many of us, we don't know who you are. For some people in Chicago, they perhaps have met you before, but I think for well, at least people in Dallas know you, and at least your family, hopefully they still remember who you are. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up? Were you born here? Were you born in India? And what was your life like and your faith life like growing up too?
Okay. So I was born in Arlington, which is about like 25 minutes away from Dallas, like 45 minutes from the Garland Church. And so I feel like I grew up with a very strong faith, which was just like passed down by my mom and my amachi. And so um, I remember my sister and I used to like take blue towels and put them on our head and pretend to be Mother Mary. Um, and my cousins and I would like play mass sometimes, but that also meant we would just try to get out of going to mass so that we could play mass. So I don't know if that was really good. But yeah, so I grew up with a very strong faith life. I've always had a very overactive imagination. So I remember as a kid, like if I was playing by myself, I would often imagine Jesus there with me, which now looking back, I'm like, oh, that's so beautiful. But at the time, I didn't really think like that. And then that was something that I feel like I lost as I got older. Um, so yeah, that's always something that I hope that like keeps coming back to me now. But so I grew up like very kind of how a lot of Indian kids grow up, like saying your prayers, going to mass, but not really having like a personal relationship with Christ. Um, and I think when I was around high school, I started to have a lot of doubts about the faith. Um, and just, yeah, just like a lot of questioning of whether or not God really exists. And that was something that would come back into my mind a lot. Um, and I don't know why I thought about it so much, but I definitely did as a high school student. And I remember when I was, I think, 14, I went on a retreat called Youth 2000, which the Franciscan Friars of the Renewal were putting on a lot back then. I think they still do. But I went there with a small group from St. Thomas, and it was in confession that I think that I had like my first real experience with Jesus, when I truly felt his presence and his love in my life. And it was something that I feel like I kept coming back to frequently when I would have a doubt about God, because I am not like the type of person who has consolations or like feels God's presence all the time. So definitely, I feel like God gave me that moment as something to look back on. And it's something that I cherish even today, that I think about almost every day. So yeah. And even after high school, I still had a lot of doubts. So then I kind of, when I went to college, I went to a very liberal arts college that's focused on, yeah, just art, music, TV. And so like there was just a wide spectrum of beliefs. And I think it was at that time that I really felt like I could kind of think about what I really believed in. And so I think that search is what drew me back in to the church. Yeah.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful you mentioned how confession was a powerful moment for you. A lot of
Yeah.
vocation stories, for example, even Pope Francis, confession for him was a turning point in which he started to think about the priesthood too. And it's
Yeah.
these moments can really anchor us. And as we remember them, as they help us in our faith journey even now. Though you were like,
Mm-hmm.
what happened? It still helps you. So that's really beautiful. So did you ever think about being a sister when you were younger?
No. We all we had a cousin that we all thought would become a sister, but now she's married. But yeah, no, I never ever thought about it. I was pretty sure I wasn't called to be a sister, nor did I ever think that was an option for me. I remember when I went on the retreat, Youth 2000, at the end of the retreat, they asked if anyone felt called to religious life to stand up. Um, and I I remember thinking these people are crazy for standing up. They're in high school. What do they think they know about what they're going to do in the future? Actually, my best friend stood up, and now she's a sister of life. So that was really awesome. But I was like, I am not standing up because I wanted to, but I was like, this is stupid. I'm not going to stand up. There's no way that I know what I'm going to do when I'm 14. So I didn't. And it's so funny because my superior now is actually the friar that started that moment in the retreat when you ask if anybody feels called to religious life to come up for a prayer. So that's really cool that he's now my superior. So yeah. Mm-hmm.
So when did you make the decision to join? So you went to college, and did you study after college too? Like, what did you study, if I can ask?
Yeah, so I went to college, and so basically my the deepening of my call to religious life, I think, started right before college when I went to India and we went to Calcutta, and we went to Mother Teresa's convent, and there was a sister there that had known her, who told me that I looked like I wanted to be a sister. And at that time, I was like, no, I don't even, like, at that time, I was really like, I don't think I believe in God. And I was kind of, yeah, I was thinking I'll be spiritual, but I won't be religious. But I'll go to mass so my parents don't know, all this kind of stuff. So yeah, I wish I knew her name because I would love to tell her that I'm a sister. But so then I was very attracted to the work that religious do, completely giving their life to the poor, especially like how the missionaries of charity and the Franciscans do. Um, so I would even have thoughts like, maybe I can become a sister, and when people are praying, I'll just like meditate on different things, which is not realistic at all. But that's how I was thinking. And then when I went to college, it was kind of out of my mind. And I decided that, well, in college, I decided that I have to know whether or not I'm going to practice my faith or just kind of leave it behind. And so that search of actually trying to figure out the faith is what deepened my faith a lot. And that's how I met St. Francis and really encountered him, and really experienced a conversion, and just a joy in being Catholic that I had never experienced before. And so then is when I really had I just want to drop everything and be a religious kind of feeling. I was so moved by St. Francis that I like stopped wearing some of my clothes, and I would just wear like certain outfits because I was like, I'm gonna go all in on poverty. And yeah, I was like very scrupulous about what I would buy because I didn't want to buy things anymore. It was all very, very zealous, but I think also a very strict way of living that God probably wasn't calling me to, because he wants to give us his joy and his peace and his love. So that is something that I think I matured in the years when I didn't enter religious life. So in college, I really started to feel like I was called to religious life, and I looked at different communities, but I didn't find a community that matched my personality or that I really loved. Um, I often thought about the Franciscans of the Renewal, but for some reason, I never contacted them. So I think that was God just like kind of pushing me along to end up here. So I continued and I got my master's in communication disorders, and then I started working as a speech pathologist. Um, and my first year of work, I moved to Houston. Um, and at that time, I really felt like there was no way I was called to religious life because I had looked at all the Franciscan communities and I was like, there's nothing here. Um, so I told God, like, I think you're shutting this door, so I'm moving on. Um, and so I started talking to guys. I had my Shadi account and all those things. And I really enjoyed a lot of people that I met, but I was never happy. And that was kind of striking to me because I feel like I know a lot of women who try to find a good guy and they can't. And I feel like it was the opposite for me, where I would find people and just be super unhappy talking to them. Um, and so um, I worked for 5 years. And then in my 5th year of work, I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. Um, and I was just kind of like always moody and upset that I had no idea what I was doing with my life. Um, and so then I went through like another intense, I'm going to figure out what's going on in my life, like I did in college when I was figuring out the faith. So I started going to adoration every morning, and then going to mass. Um, and I was just honestly begging God for a husband. But one day I remember I was in adoration, and I was just like super angry. And I say that I surrendered in that moment, but honestly, I had surrendered so many times, and God just decided to respond at that time. I really just was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I feel like you are not giving me any direction. You didn't want me to enter religious life, so I didn't. You're not making me happy with any of these guys I'm talking to. And so, yeah. And then I just said, I don't know what you want me to do. And like, you know that I wanted to be religious and you didn't call me. And then I really was just quiet for a moment, and I felt God saying that I just heard these words from scripture, like, I have called you mine. And that could mean anything because God calls everyone, you know, but for some reason in that moment, I was like, oh, I could be religious. And then I started searching again and I found my community really quickly. And it was just totally a different result than the last time. And I think that there was just so much maturing for me to do in those 5 to 6 years, that really prepared me to enter religious life when I did. So, yeah.
What a roller coaster journey.
I know.
I mean, it's incredible that, at such a young age, you took the initiative to discern religious life. And I mean, that step in itself is very brave, but not getting a clear answer, I'm sure could have been very frustrating, especially since I'm sure many people your age are not openly thinking about religious life. And then to continue to ask God to lead you and then finding the congregation, what a beautiful witness of, I guess, persevering in that. But when you said like you checked out different like congregations, what does that mean? Like, did you just kind of like look at their websites, like a brochure? Or did you actually visit them, spend time with them?
I called a lot of communities. I kind of had it in my mind that I definitely like wanted to be a Franciscan, just because I love the spirituality and the life. But I couldn't find, so I called a lot and I would see, and sometimes I would convince myself that I would enjoy what they were doing. But it, it just wouldn't work out because I didn't actually like what they were doing. I remember there was one community where they pretty much spent all of their day in contemplation, and they did a lot of manual labor, like cutting down trees and like making things out of it. And I was like, okay, I think I can do this, but that's really not me. I not enjoy cutting down trees or making things out of wood. So yeah, there was a lot of trying to force myself into things. But then I just couldn't carry through with it because I knew it wouldn't make me happy. Yeah. And also at the time, I wouldn't have found my community now because they were very small then. Our community was just starting. And I wanted to be in a community that was really established. So, yeah.
That involves a lot of faith, because one thing is joining a community and one thing is joining a community that doesn't have much, I guess, infrastructure or much years.
Yeah, we're still a really young community. So
when exactly did your community start? Because Franciscans are pretty old, but your particular community,
yes.
Could you describe a little bit about your community and its charism?
Yeah, our community, my superior, Bishop Bob, he came here in 2005. He is a Franciscan friar of the Renewal. So he came in 2005 at the request of the Cardinal at the time, Cardinal George. The purpose was that our area of Chicago, West Humboldt Park, is kind of racked with violence, gangs, drugs, and poverty, but it wasn't always like that. In the 50s, our parish was super, super vibrant and flourishing, but the school at our site caught on fire, and at the time, 92 children died and 8 sisters died. So then people started leaving the neighborhood very quickly. It was mostly an immigrant neighborhood. Polish, Italian was most of the families that were here. So they started fleeing out to the suburbs. And then the people that moved in were a lot of Puerto Rican, Black, and then just other South American communities, yeah. And then as you can imagine, like they just didn't have the support that they needed to live. Yeah. And then this area of Chicago just became full of drugs and violence. So Father Bob, because his community worked a lot with the poor, was asked to come down here to see if there was anything that he could do to get started so that the church could still maintain a presence on the west side of Chicago. And just from that, all of this kind of flourished. So he started a discernment group with a couple of young adults, and they also couldn't find a community that they enjoyed, and they wanted to stay here. They wanted to help the poor that they had been helping, and so the community just kind of grew organically from that.
That's awesome. Mm-hmm. And so how did it all click with this particular community? How did you know that this was the one? Like, what was that process like in your prayer life and your discernment? Because there's so many communities out there, as you mentioned, and you were looking for one, but how did you know that this one was the one?
So when I started discerning again, I picked up where I left off. So I went through the communities that I had discerned with before, and I quickly was able to say, no. So then I started looking again at different Franciscan communities. I just kind of went down the Google webpage I had like a little chart of this is what they do, this is what they have. The big thing for me was that I saw that they had perpetual adoration, or that they were building up to it. We're still too small to have perpetual adoration, but we are building up to being able to have that. And then they worked with the poor, which is something that I really wanted. And they also just seemed to have a lot of joy. And since they were younger, I felt like maybe I could fit in more, because like just culturally, I felt like maybe they could be more accepting. I don't know. It was just something that I thought would work out. Like 2 of the sisters were Hispanic, and a lot of younger communities are all white, or just like have one person who isn't white. And so I was concerned that maybe I wouldn't fit in, and that there was like that fear that I wouldn't fit in. So when I called here, I felt, I don't know, it just kind of clicked. Sister Alicia, who you know is our vocation director, she was very, very receptive and checked in on me, whereas a lot of communities would check in sometimes, but Sister Alicia was very consistent in like seeing how I was doing, if I was still intending to come visit. And she gave me a lot of practical advice, which was just that you don't need to discern for such a long time before you go visit. Just go visit and see if you enjoy it. So I was able to just go visit quickly afterwards for a weekend. And yeah, it just all started working out from there. Mm-hmm.
It's beautiful. I mean, yeah, you really don't really know how to explain it. Just, you know, when you're there. I remember when I did visit the seminary when I was in high school, I felt this overwhelming sense of peace where it's like, well, I think this is where I'm supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to describe how you know, but you just kind of know, right? That's awesome. So could you describe like what a daily schedule is like, for your
Yes.
stuff like that? Like, you have to get up early, like.
We do get up early, but we don't get up as early as most communities, which is a huge plus for me. We start morning prayer at 6:30, and then we have Mass. Then we have breakfast. Then we have an apostolate period, which is just like a work period where we'll do different things around our campus. Since I'm a novice, I do a lot of cleaning and cooking and just learning things from the other sisters. And then sometimes we'll have class depending on the day of the week. And class is just things about Franciscan history, saints, the history of our community, the history of religious life, things like that. Then at 12, we meet back together for lunch. And then we have another work period. And then we have Holy Hour at 5. So we have adoration together as a community, where we'll say the Divine Office, we'll say evening prayer and night prayer together. And then we have dinner at 6. And dinner is kind of our recreation time. My superior is Italian, so he loves to just like eat and talk. So a lot of our meals are like our community bonding time. So dinner is usually a little bit longer. We check in with everyone's day, kind of see how things are going. Then we clean up and we have free time. We try to like be more quiet at 9. A lot of communities will call this like their grand silence, where they don't talk until the next day, until Mass. We just try to be more respectful of time, because a few of our sisters are teachers, so we want them to be able to like do what they need to do. And so just to be respectful after 9 p.m. of what other people are doing, whether or not they're praying. Then we also, all of us have an individual private holy hour that we do on our own throughout the day. So it just depends on the work that we have that day. We just kind of sign in when we're going to go so that it goes throughout the day. And then hopefully that will build up to perpetual adoration in the future.
So it's a pretty packed day. You got a lot of stuff going on. You mentioned that some sisters are teachers. Would it be possible for you to do speech pathology and be a sister? Is that something allowed, or I guess your life right now?
All of our sisters that teach in poor Catholic schools in the area. So Chicago has a ton of Catholic schools, which is different from Texas. A lot of Catholic schools don't have speech pathologists, and our purpose in the schools is to teach just religion. So we wouldn't be teaching like math and science or anything like that. We're teaching religion. So I probably wouldn't have the opportunity to do speech pathology, but at the same time, because Catholic schools don't have the same special ed support that the public schools do, the sisters do have students in their classes that have special needs that they definitely need to be more attentive to. And I think that those skills that I've learned would be helpful if I got to teach.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Like God still uses all the talent He's given you. That's great.
Yeah.
And as a Franciscan, you take a vow of poverty, or I guess all religions take a vow of poverty. But what does that mean? What does that look like in terms of your daily life?
Yeah, so for Franciscans, poverty is especially important. St. Francis really embraced poverty. He gave up, he took it to the extreme of giving up everything he had, and he really only had his habit, and his habit was it was in the shape of a cross, which is why our habits are brown and they're in the shape of a cross. So he took poverty to the extreme because he loved the gospel and he wanted to live the gospel fully. So we try to imitate that, but we also, have the things that we need. We have kind of like the standard rule of the minimum necessary, not the maximum allowed. So because of the dangers of our neighborhood, we all have phones. So a lot of sisters may not have phones, but we do, so that we are able to communicate just for our own safety. And I mean, I have this habit, and I have another habit, and I have my workout clothes. So, I mean, we have like the necessary things that we need, but we don't really, I don't know, we like everyone, if we need something, we can definitely ask. And Bishop Bob is super generous and will definitely give us anything that we need. But I think it's kind of ingrained in us to desire to live simply.
Wow.
So yeah.
You have to ask Bishop Bob, the superior, for it.
Yeah.
Oh, that must be giving up your independence and financial, freedom. Wow.
Yeah. That was really, really weird for me at first.
Just filter out unnecessary things. It's like, am I going to really ask Bishop Bob for this? So
yeah, it can feel kind of, it's very humbling sometimes to ask for just little things, like I need a new toothbrush, but like we have actually, no, we don't have to ask for that. We have a whole thing. We have a storage closet of toothbrush and shampoo and stuff like that. But just like if we don't have something, it is kind of humbling to have to ask. And just, I mean, since I know Bishop Bob, like I know that he doesn't really say no. So it's not as scary, but I think like if you were discerning and coming into it, there is like a fear. But now that I've grown comfortable with him, I also don't really need anything. We have everything we need. So yeah.
Your community is growing, and how do you guys financially support yourself? How do you make food, or I guess how do you buy food? Because you're Franciscans who take vow of poverty. So where does everything come from?
Well, we live at a food pantry, so we have a ton of food. Our food, we rely heavily on divine providence, which really all religious rely on divine providence. So what that means is that we rely on the good of other people and their generosity to provide. And we recognize that all good that comes is from God. So it's trusting in God's goodness, which is essentially also the goodness that's in other people. So seeing Christ in other people and their kindness towards us. So we really don't want for food. We get so much food in, and people are very generous with going to pick up leftovers at Costco, Target. So those things that come in, we take what we need. And so I don't think we've bought groceries in years. But at the same time, we take what we need and we leave the rest for the food pantry. But a lot of our food at the food pantry also comes from the Greater Chicago Food Depository. We have a partnership with them. So, yeah.
That's good. Do you accept monetary donations from people? Is that something that you guys are allowed to accept?
Yeah, we accept donations for the mission, and then we also accept donations for our community. Mm-hmm.
So in fact, there is a donation link. If you guys want to donate, please support these beautiful and support them. Pretend this is a collection box being passed around digitally. But yes, you guys bring a lot of great stuff. Now, I guess we think of sisters as being, very holy, which I'm sure you are, right? But do you guys ever like fight or argue or get into disagreements?
Yes.
What?
Yeah, definitely. I don't think, no, we don't fight like I would with my sister, where we'll just say whatever we want to say and get it over with. But definitely, like, there's times when, we live together, we work together, we're together all the time. So there's definitely times when we can annoy each other or irritate each other. But I think the difference that I see that is really beautiful to me is that we try to handle things in the light of Christ. So if we do have a moment where we've been short with someone, we go to each other later to talk about what happened, or like if someone was offended, things like that. So that's been really cool, because I personally am really bad at saying sorry. So when my sisters come to me asking like if they offended me about something, I'm just like, wow, like I would never go up to someone and ask them, like, because I would never want to admit that I did something wrong. So yeah, we definitely have like our little moments where we might be irritated, but I feel like we use those as opportunities to grow in holiness. Yeah.
Nice. Mm-hmm. You mentioned your sister and your parents. How did they react? Because you're just one out of two girls, right? And so how did they react when you decided to join the convent?
Well, I think my parents are watching. They were not really happy. Yeah, and I totally understand, because you have two daughters and you want them to get married. It's not like you have 12 kids and if one becomes a sister, it's okay, So yeah, they knew in college I had told them. And so at that time they thought it was a phase. So when it was over, I think they were really happy that that wasn't going to happen. And so I think this time around when I told them, it was more shocking because it was something that was in the past. And my mom kept asking, like, are you sure? Like, you don't have to do it. Like, you can love God and just like be married and do stuff for the poor. And I was like, I know, that's good, but I don't feel like that's what I want to do. But yeah, once I came here, my parents met my community, and I think that kind of changed everything. I think they had an idea that, there's like that I was going to go to religious life and it was going to be super strict and I wasn't going to talk to them anymore. And it's not like that at all. So yeah, now my mom is like my number one supporter, and sometimes I think she thinks this was her idea, and then like she was like supporting me all along and pushing me into it. And she really, really loves my sisters. So yeah, it's just been great. And I think another fear is that like they worry like, okay, maybe I'll be happy for 5 years, but what about in 30 years? So, and that's like a valid question. It's still a valid question, you never know what's going to happen. But that would still happen in marriage too. But I think that's what we're used to and what we're comfortable with. So yeah, and it's just like they don't want me to be alone and they want me to be happy. So now that they see that I have my community and that I am really happy, they're fine with it. Yeah.
I guess that's what parents want their kids to be. They want their kids to be happy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how's your dad? Is he happy?
Dad is much more quiet and much more reserved about these deep emotional things, but he is happy that I'm happy, and he's supportive. Yeah.
No,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure he's very happy and proud of you.
Yeah, he is.
Since you have a phone, can you call them whenever you want, or can they call you whenever they want? Is that allowed?
So we don't have like strict rules about you can use your phone now and not then, or we try to live in God's freedom, so we don't like have these set rules of like you can only talk to your family from 7 to 8 on Saturday nights. But at the same time, because we're religious, there's a level of detachment and like totally giving yourself to the mission that God has given you. So what we typically do is most of the sisters talk to their families like once a week, and they may text their family throughout the week if needed. I think the main thing is that we don't we can't let the things that we have with our family become more important than everything else we're doing, because we have to be able to live the vocation. Yeah, but like if something is going on at home, then I could very easily just say, can I talk to my family today after dinner for like an hour or whatever? And that's usually not an issue. Yeah. It's just making sure the vocation is being fulfilled in its work and in prayer. Mm-hmm.
I love how, I guess, living in God's freedom, because sometimes a lot of these restrictions can kind of just keep us very, I guess, living in the law and not really seeing the love beyond it. That's
yeah.
And, I'm sure there are many young women who are similar to you, in which they're thinking about religious life. What kind of advice would you give to a young woman who is open to religious life, or maybe is scared to take that first step towards that direction of even just calling that congregation, calling the community and saying, hey, I'm interested in checking out this community? What would you tell a young woman who is discerning her vocation in life?
I would say pray. It doesn't pray every day, of course. I think sometimes people can put too much pressure on themselves and say like, I'm going to go to mass every day. I'm going to go to adoration, and I'm going to figure this out tomorrow. And that's just not how God works. Like his love is gentle and it gives peace. So like the anxiety of it isn't really helpful. So I think definitely prayer, but also having a good spiritual director, and being faithful to those two things. I think if you set a time to pray, or if you say, I'm going to pray 30 minutes a day, or I'm going to go to adoration 2 times a week and pray 10 minutes a day, or whatever you decide to do, I think it's being faithful to that that's more important than saying, I'm going to pray 3 hours a day. I don't even, that's not really practical for a young woman who might be in school or working. So yeah, like living freely within what God has given you in your time. So
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Sister Macey, for your time. Now I want to open it up. If anyone has a question for Sister Macey, you can send her a private message. You can send me a private message. If you're bold enough, you can write it for everyone in the group to see. Oh, look, we have J.C. Joseph, Sister Macey, Stores Beautiful.
thank you.
Family from Dallas. All right. Dr. J.C. Joseph, all the way.
Yes, doctor.
Thank you. But if anyone has a question, feel free to ask away. We don't always get a chance to Zoom with a Franciscan, so ask away. So if you receive any questions too, feel free to read them yourself. And yeah.
Oh, this is a really good question. Did the lack of clarity scare you at any point? Yes. Yeah, a lot, often. And I think there were times when it was super easy to just go to the Lord and journal and take it to him. And then there was times when there was like weeks where I was like, I don't know what to do. I feel like I am giving it to God, but this is not helpful. But I think it's the perseverance. I think I also always want to be 100% certain of things before I make a step. So in that sense, I'm a slow mover in figuring out what I want to do. Yeah, but I think you have to be faithful to God and let his grace work in your life, and to be attentive and aware of what he may be saying to you.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. Another question. Can you go outside of the community and go to events, or do you have to go as a group? Yeah, I can go to typically if we are invited to something on our own, then we can go on our own. I think a lot of the times if it's a ministry thing, then we personally would prefer to go with another sister, just so that there's 2 of us to kind of bounce things off of. And then we also have Brother Matt, who is our only brother right now, but we're open to male vocations too. So yeah, it just depends on the situation. It's not strict, like you have to go with someone all the time to things. And then what's something that has taken a bit of time to get used to since I've entered? Something that has taken me a lot of time that still is taking time is kind of the balance between work and prayer and then family life, because I feel like it really is a privilege to spend time or like having time to talk to your family, where a lot of communities may have more strict regulations on when you can talk to your family. It's like once a week or once a month. So for me to be able to balance all those things has been something that's a challenge, but also I see in my sisters that that's just life and you have to be okay with it, because it's just something that happens. Okay, sorry, there's a lot. So how often can I see my family? I can see my family for sure once a year, usually at Christmas time, we go home. And then if there's something major going on in the family, like a family wedding or a death in the family, then we can decide. We can see what's going on here at the mission and then talk it out, make sure there's enough people to cover the things that are going on at the mission, and then we can plan to go. And then my family is also allowed to come here and stay with us. So that's, I think, really fun when the other sisters' parents like come and stay with us. We always really enjoy those times. So yeah, that's also something that I really love about my community, is that my relationship with my family is not just me and my family. Like, I feel like my community has a concern and a relationship with my family. A t-shirt. Am I allowed to wear a t-shirt and shorts and not your habit? When we work out in private, we can wear kind of whatever we want, or we can wear what's appropriate to the setting. So if like some of the sisters like to swim, so if they are going swimming, they can wear a modest swimsuit. And then, yeah, as long as it's modest, we don't like just hang out in loungewear. So like at night, I wouldn't just put on my pajamas and like go around the convent. We try to wear our habit most of the time. But yeah, like if we're playing outside for whatever reason, if we're playing soccer outside with the neighborhood kids or something like that, we could wear workout clothes. Which cousin do I miss the most? I'm not going to answer that. What is the difference between your prayer life before and after joining the convent? There's a huge difference, because now I don't have to worry about whether or not I will have time to pray. I feel like that was always something that gave me anxiety before, like I'm not praying enough or something. But now that it's built into my life and I know that my community is also doing it, I feel much more free in it, and I actually enjoy the time more than before. Yeah, so that's something really awesome. Feel very strongly to be being called a sister. How should I prepare for that calling, or how would I deal with it if that's not God's calling for me? I think that's an interesting question, because I can totally identify with it. And I think that very much God takes into consideration our desires. So if we have a desire for marriage, or if we have a desire for religious life, and I think this is where I kind of went wrong, then God like totally takes it, and everything good comes from God. So that desire itself comes from God. So I think that if you feel a desire, it's just something that you can pray about and keep moving forward with. Looking into different communities, see what speaks to you when you see different communities. Yeah. How often? My favorite part from the life of St. Francis? Oh my goodness. All of it. I think St. Francis wrote a lot of letters to his brothers. And so reading some of the things that he says to his brothers, and how even though he was the leader of their group, there's this beautiful part of Franciscan life where when you are the leader, or when you're the superior of the community, you're really just serving the community. So leadership in Franciscan life is service. And so I think him instilling that into Franciscan life is probably my favorite thing about him. Yeah. Can I still advance in my career? So I'm not gonna be practicing speech pathology anymore. I'm still allowed to maintain my license, and I'm still allowed to like do my continuing education for speech pathology. But I'm not practicing speech pathology anymore. But I mean, I think speech pathology is very practical in that like communication issues come up all the time. So I personally feel like I use it a lot. Yeah. Is there anything I miss about my old life? Well, when I moved here, I think what I miss the most is seeing people that I knew, or especially my family. We all live like 5 minutes away from each other. So that is definitely hands down the thing that I miss the most. And then my family just keeps asking me, which person do I miss the most? Which I'm not going to answer that question.
Yes, I miss you though.
I miss my dog. The habit. So what does a habit symbolize? Our habit symbolizes our dedication to Christ. The Franciscan habit in particular is usually brown, and when it's laid out, it's in the shape of a cross. And St. Francis did this as a way of constantly like recognizing carrying the cross of Christ. Do we have pets? Yes, we do have pets, which I also really love about our community. We have pets mostly for our own protection. So we have 3 German Shepherds that are in the different buildings. My advice to parents of daughters who might be discerning is just to be open to the possibility that it could work out, and to not be afraid of it, because I feel like there's 2 ways that it could go about, where you are either open and sharing your concerns with your child, or you can just constantly tell them that you don't want them to do that and you can push them away. And then the real issues in the middle of it are not coming out. So like the real problems are maybe that we feel like they won't be happy, or we feel that they won't be satisfied in their life, or you want grandchildren's, whatever it is, like I think it would be to actually talk about why we feel the way we feel, and to go to it from a place of love. I think that's the biggest thing. The element of religious life that I think would be good for non-religious. Gosh. I think one thing that I really love about religious life that I wish that I had in lay life, regular, I don't even know what to call it, before, was just a consistent, like set time of prayer each day, and committing to it daily, which is honestly very, very hard when you're on your own. But even as a family, if you're able to commit to that, I think that's very important. And we do all eat together. We eat every meal together.
Maybe we'll do 2 more questions and we'll wrap up.
Do we have to go to college to be a nun? Most of the sisters in my community, well, no, everyone in my community has a degree. It depends on the community. Some places you can go after high school, but I think a lot of the time now, people are entering after they've gotten to college. Oh, I love this question. Do you think your education wasn't worth it because you became a sister? I feel like that's the ultimate Malayali question.
Oh man, I wasn't gonna say it, but you went there.
No, it's so true. It's such a legitimate question. You know, I was just talking to my other sister who's a novice, and she's a nurse. And we were both talking about, like, can you believe we just gave up our careers to do this? And I think I can't see myself having gone any other way, because I mean, what kind of Indian child would not be in school or married? So yeah, I had to go to school, and I feel like I use my degree all the time. So maybe it's not in the way we are we're expected to use it, or maybe it's not in the way that society wants us to use it, because we're not being paid for our skill. But I think it's, I don't know. I don't think that God wastes your time. Everything that we have in our life is an opportunity to grow and to mature in love. So I definitely think that if I had not become a speech pathologist, I don't think I would have been called to religious life. Or not that I wouldn't have been called, but just the journey would have been so different, because my experiences as a speech pathologist working with children with disabilities truly changed my heart, and made me recognize what is most important to me in my life. So I don't know how I would have got there without speech pathology. I'm not sure what God would have had to do.
Awesome. I have one last question for you. I remember last time when I was in Chicago, you did mention to me that you did miss Indian food, and
Yeah,
I did try to get you, but I failed multiple times.
I know. And then you moved.
Yeah. Hopefully someone in Chicago, if you're there, please, they can send you some Indian food. They can drop some food off for you in the community. Is that fine? Is that allowed?
Yeah, of course.
Nice. So that's very straightforward. So please, Chicago people, please do.
Yes, my address is 38. No, but yeah, I would love that.
Good. Awesome. And so I'm just going to post the link again once more. Second collection. If anyone wants to donate, didn't donate it before, please do support these great Franciscans of the Eucharist in Chicago. They're doing great stuff. When I was in Chicago, our youth group had the chance to volunteer twice with all the sisters, which is beautiful.
Gosh, we still talk about it because we loved it so much.
Wow. All right.
My superior the other day was like, I really miss the Serum Olive Our Church. So,
Wow.
yeah, they really loved having you guys here.
Please, next time you're in home, Dallas, Houston's not too far away, so please do visit Houston if you get a chance. Your old stopping grounds too, so please do visit. But I just want to thank you, Sister Macey, for the time and for sharing your beautiful testimony. You're an inspiration for all of us, and may many of our people be inspired to listen to God's call and trust. So your story is all about trust and seeing the ways in which God will lead us through this crazy journey, but may God continue to bless you, and may God continue to be the center of your life. And so we'll just give everyone a blessing. In the Father, and in the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. The grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, the love of God the Father, and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with you all now, always, and forever. Amen. Well, awesome. Thank you so much, sister.
Thank you.
God bless you. And so
yeah.
You said hi. Tell Cyril Malabar says hi.
Yes. He does sometimes say the Serum Olivars.
Nice.
As like a group of people.
You're all welcome to come to the cathedral too. So know that. So bring everyone.
Yeah.
Sure.
After the pandemic.
Yes.
I remember. Yeah.
whenever that is, however many
Mhm.
it takes. But
Yeah.